Hi, I'm Opal Mitchell. I'm doing another video this week. This time, instead of painting, we're going to be doing a sewing video. I work for the Nixon Library in Jacksonville. We're part of the Central Arkansas Library System, and I do the adult programming, and I'm also the assistant manager there. But hi. Looks like I have one person watching so far. I hope you went ahead and looked at the supplies that I posted yesterday. It's it was I'm trying really hard not to say and it seems like I'm doing it a lot, even though I'm trying not to. So I'm going to try really hard not to, because I watched myself last time and I saw that I kept saying over and over again, and I thought that might be a little annoying. So I'm going to try really hard not to do that. But if you have your supplies, I hope you already cut them out, because if we were going to cut them out while we did the video, it would take a lot longer. And it was such a simple, cutouts. I'll just look at the supplies real quick so I can reassure myself. It was a 9.5 by 7 piece of fabric, 2 pieces, and hopefully you were able to find some bias tape. I didn't have any here at my house, and I didn't want to go out and buy any, so I have let me show you real quick. If you cut out your own fabric to make bias tape, there's these handy things that you can use to help you once you get the fabric cut out. I'm still saying over and over again. This is going to be really, really hard. So, but this helps a lot whenever you go to fold the fabric to keep it. It's a handy tool. You don't have to have it to make your own bias tape if you have to make bias tape. I watched some videos on how to do it. I've done bias tape before whenever I was making some other projects, but I didn't have to make as much, and it didn't seem as hard then, I guess because I just made a smaller piece and I didn't need as much. This time with the bias tape, we're going to be, you're going to need, I think it was at least 40 inches. Yeah, two strips of bias tape that measures 40 inches. When you're making it, you have to put together a lot of pieces of fabric to do that, and it became a little frustrating when I was doing it. So if you could go to the store and buy it, I hope you were able to do that, because bias tape, when you're trying to learn how to make it, can be a little frustrating in the beginning until you get used to it. If any of you are interested, I think I've got the hang of it now. The main part is sewing the pieces of strips of paper or fabric together to do your bias tape. If I'm going to post a video at the end in the comments to the video that showed me how to make the bias tape, and then I'm also going to post one about how to do the mask, because I'm not following the directions quite like the one that I watched, because I know some people are not able to get all of the supplies to make some of these masks, because the one that I watched, they had floral wire in theirs that went across the bridge of the nose area so it could form up against their face better. I didn't have any that type of wire, or I didn't have any other wire that would work. So I did mine without it, because I'm kind of going to assume that a lot of you guys aren't able to go out and get supplies for this and try to work with what you might actually have on hand. So that's why I'm going to do mine without that wire. If you've got it, that's great. You can watch the video that I post in the comments later. It shows you how to put the floral wire in there. She also does hers where you can have a place to put a filter inside of the mask. The one I'm going to show you today is not going to have that. But it's just 2 pieces of fabric. You have to have 3 pieces, and you have to do extra work to put that in there. Not all the places that are asking for the masks, they don't necessarily want them to have a place for a filter in them, because the fabric masks really don't protect them against the coronavirus. It's really to help people find... I'd like the people in the labs and so forth that need... Hey, Pat. It's nice to see you made it. These masks are really meant for healthcare professionals that don't get even a normal mask, because there is a shortage. So it'll help them out a little bit. I'm going to tell you, a friend of mine told me that she works for the Child Advocacy Centers of Arkansas, and she's the one that made me originally look into making the... Hi, Cindy. Into making the masks, because she said that they were asking for them. So, that's one place you could donate them to if you want to donate them. Now, if you're sick, it's a good idea to wear a mask, so when you cough, you don't get anything anywhere. That's what they were saying. Even my nurse friend was saying that people who are sick need to be wearing them. But as far as protecting you, it gives you a little bit of protection. And she even said that she works for UAMS, and they have masks, but she said if they run out of them, they were telling them that they could just wear a bandana over their face to cover their mouth. So she said if you made these, that would be better than nothing, because they are looking at probably having a shortage. So it would be helpful if you wanted to donate them. And also, I saw online, and this is popping up a lot, Joann's Fabric, a store, they are offering out pre-cut materials and elastic for this type of project. Hi, Pat. And so I would call Joann's first just to make sure they had the supplies before you made a trip over there. I live about 20 minutes away from there, so I haven't thought about going to even getting anything from them. But if you want to look into getting free supplies from them, I would encourage you to call and check with them. And if you know of any healthcare centers or clinics and stuff even that you think might want some, they were saying that any healthcare provider generally will like to have them, because their lab techs are not involved directly with patients, so they're really not getting the masks during the shortage. So people like that would probably like them. If you wanted to make them for other people, then I just wanted to give you other ideas of who you could be making them for, because I know some people are kind of bored at home and want something to do, and if you wanted to make these for those people, it looks like they're wanting them. I would check with them and find out about if they have specifications on them as far as how they're made and so forth, and what they prefer, or if they even really want them, or how you would drop them off. So just check with them first. And let's see. And I'm calling this Crafting with Opal because I talked to my library, and they said that if I wanted to do a weekly crafting program and just do a different one, that would be fine. And so I thought calling it Crafting will cover any types of crafts that I do. So let's see here. I think I covered all of that. I hope you have your supplies, and you can always watch this later if you don't want to follow along with me. I already cut out I keep saying even though I told myself I wasn't going to do that. Excuse me. So anyway, I have some ribbon too, and I'm going to show you, if you don't have bias tape and you weren't able to make any bias tape, I'm going to really quickly show you what you do with the bias tape, or not the ribbon. The ribbon I have, even, I don't have like a whole 40, yeah, I don't have 80 inches worth of the same color, so I have two different ones. I'll show you just real quick what you do. Let's see here. I think that's, those were the only things. Yeah, I wrote myself some notes so maybe I wouldn't forget anything. And I hope you have some pins and an iron, because we will be using those too. If you don't, you might want to grab those items and have those handy before we get started here. So I'm gonna be doing a little bit of moving around of my camera because I only have one camera. So I'm just gonna be moving. I have it on a tripod, so I'm gonna be moving it up and down for the different things that we're gonna be doing. So hopefully y'all won't get like a motion sickness or anything. I saw little hearts appear on my screen. That's cool. Oh, and so I'm gonna try to do that real quick without moving you guys around too much. And here we go. You get to see the back of my room a little bit. I'm gonna switch this around to my stuff. All right. There's my table. And let me tighten this up so it doesn't flop over. Alright, this is the mask I made yesterday. I had lots of problems with the bias tape because I decided I wanted to do a thinner bias tape. Oh, that is really, really hard to do. I do not recommend. It may look better, but it's a whole lot harder to sew. So, I don't recommend it. I recommend going ahead and going with the 1/2-inch bias tape. It will not be as difficult to work with as this thin. Even though this thin stuff looks, if you look really close, I couldn't get it real straight at times, and the hardest part was when I had to flip it over. You'll see. Let's see. All right, so that's the one that I made yesterday, and it turned out okay. All right, so here is the bias tape we're going to be using, or I'm going to be using. And then here's some ribbon I was talking about. If you didn't want to do the bias tape, I'd have to use two different colors because I only have about 40 inches of each color. And this is the fabric. I've got the white, and then I've got the print. I figured there's no reason to do print on the other side. Well, I guess I could have if I wanted to make it reversible, which, honestly, this is reversible. I guess I could have done that. No, not the way the pleats are. I don't know. I don't know if that would have worked or not. But anyway, I wanted to make it where you could tell. All right. So if you did want to do ribbon, really quickly, I'm going to show you what you would do. You would put this on your machine with, of course, the right side facing on the inside. You would line them up, and you would, of course, pin them and pin it in place to hold it in place. And you're going to, with that one...
I believe you have my stapler.
Uh-oh. I'm so sorry. I just got a text message, and it's... Yeah, that's why it made that noise. It said, I believe you have my stapler. It's a office space thing. But anyway, that was just me getting a text. Sorry about that, because I'm using my phone.
I believe you have my stapler.
And they're asking about a tripod, and that's the one I'm using right now. Okay. So with the ribbon, you would start sewing, and you would want to leave a gap, and I'd probably leave either a gap here or up here. It doesn't matter. But just on the long side is where I'd leave a gap. So I'd start, and then I would sew to the corner and go all the way up, and then sew all the way across, all the way down, and then all the way to about here, and then stop, and then turn it right side out, and then iron it flat. And when you ironed it flat, then you would, let's see, I'm going to skip ahead on some of these steps. there's a couple of things, and we're going to do it in a few minutes, where you would fold it in half and iron it, and then fold it like this and iron it, and that gives you like a line for your pleats. And then you would also fold it down the middle too and iron it to give you a middle section. Because on your ribbon, when you go to put it on, you want to measure out 40 inches. And then I would let's just pretend this is 40 inches. This whole thing is 40 inches. And then you would find your middle of your tape, and you would line it up with the middle of that, where that crease is that you've made. And then and we're going to pretend this is turned right side out. I know it's still wrong side. And with this one, you would just simply sew this down across there. And you would do that with your other piece. And so, well, when you sew the other piece down over here, it's going to actually close up your hole that you made down here too. If you wanted to do some top stitching on here after you turned it right side out, instead of going ahead and putting the ribbon on immediately, you could top stitch it all the way around just to make sure you got that hole closed good, and then put your ribbon over it and sew the ribbon down. It's a more simplified version of it if you don't have bias tape and you can't get to the store to buy it, and you really don't want to make any, because this would work just as well. I would probably, sometimes this frays, the ends of the ribbon do. So one thing I would probably do on each end is fold it over a couple of times, and then just either hand stitch or on the sewing machine, just tack it down with a 1 or 2 stitches so it would stay down. Or you could, it's so small you probably wouldn't want to get it under it'd probably get caught up under your sewing machine unless you're able to keep it from doing that, but sew across it to hold it down. But that's one thing I would do, just so the ends wouldn't fray. So here we go. Hi, Marion. Let's see here. So we're going to do it with the bias tape. I'm going to get rid of this ribbon because we're not going to be using it. And I already showed you. And this, for people who might be just now watching, this is something cool that you can use when you're making your own bias tape. You just cut out your fabric, and then you feed it in on this side, and when it comes out, you use your iron where it will actually iron it down where it will be like this. It comes out that end, and then you just iron it, and that way, once you get that piece ready, ironed flat like that, then you can fold it down and go back over it this way. It's just a tool to help you out with that kind of thing. Alrighty, so now that we got all that discussed, I don't pin my stuff together a whole lot, but I'm going to do it for you guys because it's really a good idea to do it, because you never know when your fabric is going to shift on you. We're going to start off by sewing just down these sides. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it. And I have, my bias tape is blue, and I actually went ahead and put blue bias tape, or thread, in my sewing machine, so it will match. Right now it's not going to really matter because I'm just sewing my ends down, but once I start sewing on top of this, it'll blend in a little bit better. Let's see here. We're going to do... So, and this is the shorter side, which is the 7-inch side, so don't sew down the 9-inch side. It's going to get sewed down once we're putting the bias tape on. So, let's see here. I got it pinned, and I suppose, just to be on the safe side, I didn't pin it yesterday, and it didn't shift on me, but... Alright, so I've got the wrong sides, which the white, you can't tell what's... it's facing out, the wrong side's facing out, and my right side is facing down. So there we go. I've got that. And now I'm going to move you guys as I move this over here. Pardon me. This is not real smooth, but alright. So let's get in here where we can see what we're doing. I apologize for all the moving around. I'm trying to not move very much, and I want y'all to be able to see everything really well. Okay. So this is my 7-inch side right here that I'm going to sew down. And I'm keeping my directions handy to make sure I don't mess anything up. Alright, this is pretty simple though. So I think you guys can do this. I always insert my fabric in a little bit further past the needle so I can immediately just back up to that will actually, and I like to start with my needle in the fabric, and I just have it lined up, my fabric lined up with the edge of my sewing foot here, and I'm just going to back up a little bit, and then we're just going to sew all the way down. When I get to the end, I'm going to backstitch. Alright, so we got that. And, well, that's okay. Looks like I didn't get my fabric lined up really good. But that's okay. It's not going to be a huge deal. It's going to get covered up whenever I put the bias tape over the top of it, so it'll be alright. Yeah, that's not going to matter. Alright, so always want to move your pins out of your fabric because you do not want to sew over it. It'll break your needle. We've had that happen in our sewing classes. I think more than once, actually. I had a friend tell me one time that she never took her pins out and always sewed over them and never had a problem. I thought, wow, what good luck she has. Alright, let's a little bit closer. Alright. So I've got both of my edges sewed, and I'm clipping off my threads over to the side here. You might be able to hear me doing it, but you can't see me. Okay, so I've got both of my edges sewed all the way down, and now I got to take my other pins out because we're going to turn it right side out. Hey Terry, I see that you're watching now. And I'm going to move back over to my ironing board so we can iron down the edges. Hey Terry, I bet you didn't realize you were texting me while I was doing this video. It's so funny, it popped up on my screen while I was doing this. Let's see, and I'm using the tripod, Terry, that you were asking about too. It came in the mail today, or Amazon delivered it anyway, and I got the GoPro camera too. I'll have to order a SD card for the GoPro because it doesn't come with one. But I think the GoPro might be kind of handy. I don't think Yep, my iron was sleeping, so it's not ready for me. It's plugged in. It's just it wasn't. You know how it's for the safety feature how they sleep. And I'm just during this time period going to go ahead and shift the fabric a little bit so when I do iron it, maybe it'll iron good. Let's see. Is it warm? I can't tell. Let's see if I can get it to... Oh good, it's heating up now. Doesn't take this one too long usually to get heated up. So we're just pressing this now. Alright, and I got it pressed. Let's see. So our next step, pressed my edges, and we're going to, I think when some of y'all were listening earlier, I was telling you we're going to fold this in order to, and iron it to create creases in here for where we're going to do our folds later, and that's for these folds right here. So we will press it in half. Little threads. Alright, so we're going to press it in half with the outside of the mask on the outside, and your inside is there. I'm just going to press it in half. Keep your hands clear of the iron because sometimes mine starts steaming and the steam will get me. Alright, and so we're also going to press the edges inwards. So there I've got my middle crease, and I'm going to fold these inwards to the middle, like so. And I don't want that other crease to come out, so I'm going to fold it like that and just press it like this. She didn't do that. Oop, there comes the steam. So all my creases will be there. Alright. That is important. Okay, so now I got my creases, and I don't want those, they told you to fold it in half to get your middle, but I think what I prefer to do is just to mark it. Ooh, which you don't always have to do it exactly the way they say to do things. So I'm just going to approximately figure out about where the center is. Let's see here. Oh boy, this is not exactly even, is it? It's almost 4. I will say that's probably a good idea because this is not measuring out quite the way I thought it would. Okay, I guess I'll do what she did. Fold it in half. I just don't want to lose my creases. I know what, I'm going to do it this direction and be really careful. Oh, and she did just the top and bottom too, because that's probably why, to avoid losing your other creases that you did. So you just want a slight crease in there so you can kind of know where the middle of your fabric is located. And then fold mask. Alright, and so we're going to fold our bias tape in half to find the center of our bias tape so we can pin it in place. I'm going to go ahead and get my pins. Move my directions out of the way here. Alright, so here's my bias tape. You're just going to hold it and find approximately where the center is. So that's my center. And we're going to open the bias tape. Move it down because you want this to be at the top edge. Since I know that's my center and I don't want it to move, I'm going to go ahead and pin that in place. So now whenever I pin the other edges in place, it'll hopefully won't move on me. Oh, thank you, Patrice. Yeah, this is actually this is a great way to get rid of some leftover pieces of fabric that you might have laying around that you used for other projects. And this actually is some really cute fabric that I got quite a few years ago, and I made a few things for a coworker with it, and I didn't use all of it because, you know, sometimes you don't really know when you're making projects. You kind of know how much you're going to need, but you don't always end up using all of it, and you always think, well, maybe I'll get a little bit extra just in case, because you don't want to not have enough fabric, and you don't want to run out. I'm going to go ahead and pin my other one in place because I'm already here, and so I'm just going to go ahead and do it instead of, because I think she sewed hers in place and then sewed her other one, but I'm just going to go ahead, since I have to move this whole camera with me whenever I go back to my sewing machine, so I won't be moving you guys around so much. I'm going to measure out the center, and that's the center, and then there's the crease that I made earlier. So I'm going to pin that in place. And see how I'm pinning it too is the bias tape, I'm putting the right side down facing the right side of the fabric. Alright, so here we go. And I do recommend using the 1/2 inch bias, double bias tape, yeah, because the smaller kind is a little bit, especially if you're not real comfortable with working with bias tape, it's a good one to work with in the beginning to get used to it, because it's different. But once you've done it a little bit, you might, like this thinner one that I did, it was quite difficult to do it, but I think I might have measured it a little too small when I was making it. I think one size bigger than this would have been better. This is incredibly hard to work with. But I'm sure people who have been sewing forever, they probably don't have a problem with it. Alrighty, and once you get it pinned down, and like I said, you want the right sides of the edge of the bias tape. If you bought your bias tape, and I should have pointed this out to you earlier, mine's not like this because I made it myself out of the fabric I had at home. With the store-bought bias tape, one edge is bigger, the fold when it folds over. Let's see. One side is bigger than the other, or longer than the other, and she said to put the shorter edge on this edge, so I'm really, really sorry that I didn't tell you that whenever I was taping it. She said to do it on this side because you want the longer one for the part that folds over. It'll cover up more that way for you. Mine, it doesn't really make a difference because I made my own bias tape and I didn't. Mine ended up being the same. Well, that one does look a little shorter. Maybe it did. But mine mostly is not like that, like the store-bought. And the store-bought fabric or bias tape, when you buy it, it's usually thicker fabric. The fabric I'm dealing with is just some stuff that I'd bought, so it's kind of thin, but it works. So now that we've got it pinned on here, I'm going to take it back to my sewing machine. Sorry about all the movement. Let's lower the camera. Alrighty. And I hope you guys can see. Alright, and let's see here. I'm going to double check my directions again, because a lot of times when I'm sewing, I tend to get it in my head that I know what I'm doing, and then I just do it. Then I end up making a mistake because I've skipped a step or whatever, or I didn't measure right. The math is what I really have to double check and triple check myself on, because that's something I can mess up on quite a bit. So let's see here, fold it, and then we put it down on there, pin it in place, and then we're going to sew down the edge on both edges. And then, okay, we're almost done actually. This is really not a whole lot to this. Alright, so we're going to put this under here, and you're going to see the little fold here, and that's where my fabric's put together, so it's kind of hard to see. We're going to pull this out over here, and you're going to try to make sure, and this is going to be kind of hard because I'm right where I did my where I put my fabric together, so sometimes that'll go under there and get bunched up. I'm going to try really hard to keep that from happening. Actually, I might start out further in, and you want to sew down this fold right here. And I'm going to move my needle down to see if it's actually going to hit that spot. And I'm going to move mine just a little bit, because I know my fold needs to be a little shorter. So I'm moving it over where it's just on the other side of this fold right here. And I'm going to back up first. And then I'm going to be really slow, or try to be slow, so it doesn't bunch up that little piece of fabric. Oh, yay. I did it without. So you just want to sew until you get to the end of just the mask. You don't want to sew past that area. So we're going to just sew down the crease and take our needles out. Try to keep it lined up the best we can. And I'm getting close. Oops. Yeah. I'm going to back up. And I'm going to do one more stitch because I think that's at the very edge. Okay. And then I'm going to take this out. And always pull your thread back behind your sewing machine and make sure it's always in the middle of there, because you don't. If you ever start sewing with it not in that spot, it will mess up on you. Sometimes it won't. I'm sorry, I turned away to cut my threads, and so I was talking towards the trash can, which was away from the camera, so you might not have been able to hear me. So I'm just cutting my threads off. And now I'm going to do the other side. So I'm going to flip it over. And slide this up under here. Alright. I don't know, are any of y'all sewing along with me, or I'm just kind of curious. This might be kind of a hard thing to sew along with. I don't know. I know when we did the paint along, that probably wasn't too difficult to do, but sewing might be. So now I'm doing the same thing, and got to take that out. Bet you thought I was going to sew over it. I almost was busy talking and didn't pay attention. So, and you notice how I don't get my hands back over there. I'm always telling my students to keep your hands up here. Don't put them back here, because this knob back here will hit your hand, and it doesn't feel very great when it hits your hand. So just be careful, because it can get up in there, and I've done it. It does not feel good at all. Alright. Okay. Here we go. Almost done with this end. To the end. And then do a back stitch. Alright, so now, whoops, sorry, I kicked the camera. We're going to get that out of the way, and I'm going to cut my threads. I used my thread cutter on the side of my machine, but I don't always cut it as short as I want. These kind of cutters are very handy. So you're not always using your big fabric scissors to cut your threads with all the time. These are nice ones, nice little ones to keep near your sewing machine. Alright, so now that we've got both those edges done, we're going to be actually sewing down the ends of our bias tape. So, she was recommending that you turn it, let's see, I can't see because of the camera. Let's see. How did she do it? I'm trying to remember. That's right. It was nothing. I was trying to make it more difficult than it was what it was. She sewed across this, and then you turn it right side out like this. I didn't do that on my first one because I didn't realize that's what she did. So, if you're seeing okay, this is the way you normally, when you buy it, the way it's folded. You're going to fold it the opposite way, where the raw edges are showing. And we're just going to sew across it. And then if this is totally wrong, since this is the first time I did this, then, oh, sorry. But I didn't do this part the first time because I thought I knew what she was doing, and I didn't. Alright, so, and I kind of did some back stitching too. So let's see if this actually worked. Because I think I understood what she was talking about, but I might have been totally wrong. Let's hope I got it right. So let's cut off my extra threads. And I might actually want to cut some of the extra fabric off. So, oops. I just hit one of my lights. Okay, so let's see. I might even need my little corner thing. Yeah, I'm gonna get... Wow. I just don't have a whole lot of space to move around in here. I have a little thing that pushes out corners. There we go. Alright. So now... Oh yeah, that'll look pretty nice because we will start on the end here and sew it down. So that, yeah, do you see how that worked? Hey Nancy. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to do that on all the ends real quick. So I'm going to do it again, which, oh wow, look. That one, when I made my thread, or my fabric, it was one of my edges that, that'll be okay. I will make it work. Since I made my well, I better do it on the side where I can see that. I made my bias tape, so you have slanted edges whenever you're making bias tape. So I'm just going to get really close to that. There we go. I'm going to do one back stitch. Ooh. Okay, I think that's good enough. Okay, when you're sewing small pieces, it's really hard not to go, or I tend to go kind of fast on sewing it. Alright, so let's cut those out of the way. And then I'll try not to hit my light again whenever I'm cutting the fabric edge off here. Let's see. small. Get that out of the way. And then I love these little pointers that you can buy for pushing your points. They sure do help. Okay, so now that end is done. Alright, so I got two ends done. Let's do the other two ends. Okay, so I was just reading what Nancy wrote and saying, "Hi, kiddo. It's so nice of you to join me, Nancy." And everybody else, it looks like we've got about 9 people here. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we're folding it with the what you would call the right sides together. And see, I'm putting the smooth sides, the folded sides this direction when I'm sewing, so I have less likelihood of my machine grabbing the fabric while it's going through there. So I'm going to try to get it closer to the edge, which might not be a good idea. Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea because when you're sending this small of fabric through, you have more likelihood of it getting caught. Oop. Alright. Didn't get away from me. There we go. As badly as the other ones did. Okay. Let's see here. Let's get that out of the way. We're almost done with this part, and I'm going to go ahead and cut off my excess fabric again, I guess. So I have a smaller end to tuck in. And then I'll push my corner back out. Alright, so I got that one. I got one more left to do. And then we can sew it down. And I noticed I have another one of those corners that's got the slant in the fabric because of the way that I made it. So I'm going to try to remember right about there. Because I don't want to send that other end like that. Let's see. What about there? Let's straighten that up just a little bit. Hey, I just noticed something. Let me pull this back out again. My thread came undone. I only had one thread back here, and that was my bobbin thread. My top thread came out. So I'm going to rethread real quick because, you know, that happens. It does happen when you're not careful when you're sewing. So I'm going to thread it back again. Oops, let's move that down and position that better. I do like, it gets hung sometimes. Alright, I do like using that to thread my needle because I don't have great eyesight. Where, if you're like me, to wear glasses, it's nice whenever I can come over a little bit further. I was over a little too far. Just now noticed. So I'm going to, that little hole that I made earlier, now I can't see it. There it is. I'm going to move over just a little bit. Alright. Oops. Donna Johnson. Where did you get your sewing scissors at? Are you talking about these little clippers or these fabric scissors, the big ones? The big ones, these are Fisk. Let's see, I'm trying to make it where you can see. Oh, wait, Fiskars? I'm always not sure about how you pronounce it. Those you can buy at Walmart or Joann's. I think, Hobby Lobby. I think most fabrics, places that carry fabric have those. This particular pair, though, I've seen them in a lot of different places. I would definitely check Joann's. They seem to have a better assortment of sewing accessories. I think I may have bought these, though, from Tuesday Morning, but they don't carry a big assortment. It's just what they have is what they have. It's almost like an overstock type store. And whenever I see things at Tuesday Morning, I make sure it's actually a good deal. And then usually a lot of it is a pretty decent, better price than if you go to another store and buy them. But I'm pretty sure I got those at Tuesday Morning. But I've seen those at Joann's. I don't know that I've seen them at Walmart, but I would look at Walmart because some of the bigger Walmarts might have it. And it'd be cheaper there. But if you do end up having to get them at Joann's, bring one of their coupons or download their app. The Joann's app always has coupons, and they generally have at least one coupon on there that's for a regular price item. So that would be a good way to get them and get a fair price for them. Oh, let's see here. I missed a message. Let's see. Just making sure you sew it right. Oh, okay, Nancy. I'm just now reading your message. When I get to sewing here, I miss some of the things that people say. All right. And I'll try to answer any questions as I'm going along here. Occasionally I'll miss them, of course, while I'm sewing, but things. I'm glad. The ones that I watch, the live videos, or the ones where they're actually talking to the people, I watch a bunch of painting ones, because that's one of the things I'm really into right now is painting. The lady that I watch, she has thousands of followers, so whenever she's doing it, her husband has to do the cameras, and he'll tell her the questions that people are asking, because she can't do it. I mean, she has to do the painting stuff and let him handle all of that stuff. Oh, you're welcome, Donna. Okay, so I am done with this last one, so I'm going to cut that off and turn it right side out, and then we will get that pushed out, and then we can sew all the way down. We'll only have 2 more things to sew. We'll have to pin it. Alright, I'm going to get this out of the way. So I don't need that anymore. I'm putting my little pointer out and those out of the way. Okay, so now that we've got all of the corners tucked in like that, I'm going to look at my notes to make sure I'm not going to skip anything. So turn ends, bias tape inside out and sew down. Turn them right side out and then sew all the way down the side of each bias tape. Okay, and then after that we'll pin down the tucks that we did earlier and top stitch. So, okay. So now we're going to get ready to do that part. So I'm going to turn this around so you can see we are bringing, I'm going to pin this down because it's going to want to move on me. So I'm going to pin that and see, hopefully, see if you had put it on there correctly. Oh, maybe I need to do a better job of pinning. If they had the bigger side on this side, then it will actually cover up your stitches that you made earlier. I'm going to turn that sideways. There we go. But I made my own bias tape, so it may not be, mine may not quite cover it, but not the end of the world. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a look. It's not necessarily, doesn't have to be perfect. At least they know that it's personalized and it was handmade by somebody instead of store-bought. Whenever you have the imperfections, right? So, since the bias tape is thin, that's why I'm slanting my needles or my pins when I put them in there to make sure that they hold, because it's not enough. There we go. There's that side, and then I'm going to turn. I would have moved it over to my ironing board to do this, but I didn't want to move the camera any more than I had to, because I don't know if that kind of gives you all kind of a motion sickness type feeling whenever I'm moving the camera around that like that or not, just to be on the safe side. Oops, there I go. I generally pin myself at least once when I'm doing projects. I don't know about you, but I tend to. I hope I'm pointing these the right direction when I start sewing. I guess it doesn't really matter as long as I make sure that I start on the end that I want to. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm going to start sewing at the end here. And this is a neat little trick, and I like, that's why I like to watch videos of people doing stuff, because I always learn something. She said that once she starts sewing, she will actually grab this thread and oh, I didn't like that. My fabric, yeah, I was going to be in the middle of my fabric, and I didn't like that. I was paying more attention to what I was saying rather than what I was doing. So I'm going to look and see how I'm lining this up this time to make sure. I want to be a little closer to the edge than that. This is always the hardest part for me, when it's small pieces of fabric and you want to get really close to the edge. I think that'll be good enough. I've got 2 pieces of thread, and there I go kicking the camera again. Sorry. Alright, so let me try to scoot up here without hitting anything. And keeping this straight while I'm... Alright. I guess I'll have to go kind of slow. And then she said to grab the thread to actually... I'm going to actually pull it forward a couple and actually do this manually, because I want to do some back stitching. I'm just going to do one because it's so small. And then, let's see here. If I can grab a hold of this and grab a hold of this. Yay, it's kind of working. Alright, now that I got it going, this will be a little bit easier. I'm just trying to keep my bias tape straight, and I keep bumping the camera. Alright, so you want to get to the edge of the fabric if possible. And you can kind of see the bottom edge of mine from the way I'm sewing it. And that's always better when it comes to bias tape, if you could, or even any fabric that you're sewing, the longer piece to be on the bottom, because you know that if you're getting this top piece, then you're going all the way through both pieces. If you have the bigger, the piece on top that's sticking out further, then you might not get both pieces of fabric whenever you're sewing. You might not even see it. So, alrighty. I'm a little late. Oh, hey, Mitzi. She's a little late, but she's watching. Well, cool. I think you'll enjoy this one, Mitzi. I think you might actually, if you want to make one of these, I think you'll like it, because it's not a real difficult one. I've heard people were making lots and lots of these. Some of them people I was talking to on Facebook, they were making them, but they didn't know who was taking them as donations even. So I was surprised that they were making them without even knowing who they were going to give them to. Generally, I want to make sure it's going to be useful. That's why whenever I first heard about the face masks, I talked to my nurse friend about whether or not they would be useful, you know, that whether she knew if they would find them useful. And she told me, you know, yeah, that since they were telling them that if they ran out of them, that they were going to be using bandanas. So they would rather have one of these, you know, even though it doesn't protect them against the coronavirus. Okay, so I'm just going a little bit slower just to make sure. And I don't want to get too close because then I can't pull out my needle. Hope my hands are not too much in the way where you can see what I'm doing. I'm just trying to make sure I'm on the edge, that I can see blue on there and not white. Because if I start seeing white down there, I know I'm getting too close to the edge. Alright, so we're going to keep it going. Generally, and I can see a little bit of white, but as long as I make sure I don't go off my edge, I'm okay. And if you ever get too close, let me show you a trick. If you ever get too close and you can't get your needle out, or your pen, you can put your needle all the way down in there, lift up your pressure foot, and then that gives you room to pull it out. Just be sure to put your pressure foot back down again before you start sewing again, because if you don't, then you'll have a mess on your hands, very possibly. Alright. And I'll show you another neat little accessory, which I've seen these at Walmart and I love it. It's a magnetic pen holder. So you just throw your pens on there and it holds in place. I love purple, so I got a purple one. They've got all, you can find these at Walmart or any place that's got sewing stuff. But those are very handy. I got a little bit closer to the edge than I wanted to, but I haven't went off the edge of my fabric just yet, so that's okay. I'm going to tilt, make sure that come on, I want to get a little bit further over. There we go. Feel more comfortable right there than where I was. Okay, now I'm coming off my fabric. I'm just going to be sewing the bias tape. So I want to get a little bit further over because I don't want to come off the edge of my bias tape. Just trying to keep it flat. Almost to the end. And I'm going to move some of this stuff. I have a little tiny light back here that I keep hitting. I'm trying to not hit it. I'm trying to give y'all a little more light so you can see what I'm doing. Actually, I think that's causing a glare. Oh well. You know what? Well. Whatever. I'm not going to worry about it. I think y'all can see it okay. I try to have as many lights as possible while I'm doing this, just to make sure you can see what I'm doing. Generally, I don't use all of these lights when I'm sewing. Alright, I'm getting close to the end of this one. Back stitch and hope it didn't get caught. Yay! Alright. And see, it's a little hung, so I'm going to turn my knob on the side here to make it come loose. Alright, so that's one side, and I'm going to cut my threads. Oh good. Alright, thank you Donna for letting me know that you can see. It's kind of hard to know. Let's see here. And so let's see. I'm going to go ahead. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to bump my camera again. Keep doing that while I'm cutting my threads off. Alright, so let's do the other side. And you can kind of see when we sewed it, it shows up on the other side. Which you should be covering this up if you did your bias tape the right way, which I made mine, so of course it's not going to be quite like that. Alrighty, so let's do the other side, and I'm trying to line this up. Alright, I'm going to start on this end because I'm trying to make sure it's going in the direction that I want to when I'm sewing it. I want to sew down the edge with the edge facing the right way, where I can actually see the inside of my fabric. So when I'm laying it down on here, I want this to be on this side of the sewing foot, and then when I come up to this part, I have the white side showing because I want to make sure I get this part sewed down. If I had this other side showing, I wouldn't know if I was catching this one or not. So that's why I'm taking so long to make sure that I'm putting it down there correctly, because I want to make sure. Alright, so let's get that in there. Okay, and I'm going to pull on that a little bit to make sure it's nice and taut and tight there. Okay, and then, like I said, I always like to start with mine with a needle in. You don't have to, but I like to. And I'm going to hand manually stitch back one and then forward. Alright, so just to get it started. You have a little more control over it when you do it manually like that, and I like to do that in the beginning. Okay, just when I'm not real sure. Okay, so I got it started. So now I'm going to pick this up and put it next to it. Alright. Try to make sure that I don't go off the edge. Try to keep to the side or the corner or the very edge of the fabric as possible, because you want to close it up. If you don't get close to the edge, then you can kind of see the opening more. Okay, and I might go a little bit faster on this one since I feel a little more comfortable with it. With anything, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. Okay, moving this along here because it's coming up here again. And like I try to tell my students in the sewing class a lot, you kind of let the machine do all the pulling. You don't want to pull it through or push it through, because it's going to do a better job on its own if it does it instead of you pushing it through. Because you're just guiding the fabric is really what you're doing. And it's doing, because that's what the feed dogs underneath are doing. It's pulling it through for you. Alright, we got to the mask. Alright, that one was slanted nicely where I could pull it out easily. I know when I watch the videos online, they just sew really, really fast. And they get their stuff done very quickly. But then again, none of them ever do live videos, so they may even speed up their videos for all I know. I know some of them do. Alright, so I'm done with that. Oops, got a little close to the edge. It's always good to be slow and steady. I'm going to push that through so it's... Hi, is that Zara? And then Beth. Hey Beth, I know Beth. Hope y'all are enjoying this. I'm almost done actually, but you can go back and watch this later, the whole video, and I'll have some links that you'll be able to go to that show you how to make your own bias tape if you want to do, or say you can't find any in the store. Is the main reason I was teaching this particular one is that all the masks that I saw that were with the elastic, I couldn't find any elastic. And then when I tried to go online and order elastic, there was none available for a while. Like if you ordered it, you wouldn't get it till the end of April or the beginning of May. So I tried to find a mask that you could make that you didn't need that, or even like with the bias tape, even though you're using it, you can make bias tape yourself. So at least you would have the supplies you need, even if they were sold out, you know. Okay, so I'm going to backstitch just a little bit. Alright, and so we got that part done. And I'm going to cut my other piece of thread off, and then we'll be sewing down the last part. Alright, so I'm going to pin it over here so you guys can see. Let's see here. Make sure I'm doing it right. Always looks weird to me the first time I do it. Okay. Maybe I should back up the camera or turn it to the side here so y'all can see. Alright. The lighting's not as good over here, but alright, so we're gonna pin it down to, or fold it down to about here. To about like that, because that's from that fold that we ironed down earlier. So I'm going to pin it on both sides. So you can see, oops, I pinned that down, and I pinned that down. This might have been better if I moved. Okay, I want to make sure these folds do. Yep, that's the way she did it. Okay, so we're doing our next fold, and we're going to pin it down. Gotta see if I can move that camera a little, or the light. All right, so that's the next one. And this will be pretty easy to do because just ironing down these and making the creases earlier makes it just fold naturally into place like that. Except that one's a little bit further down than that one, so I want to keep them about the same. Yeah, that's overlapping that one. So I think it's just because I'm doing it with this camera here. I can't see what I'm doing. Alright, you want to keep them the same. And it might be the way that I ironed it too. Okay, so that's a little bit better. Want them to be even. Oh, I'm sorry, that was not on camera. So see, they're evenly spaced, and then the way the folds are, they're not on top of each other. like that. And that's about a half an inch fold. Alright, so, oh, if you hear some noises in the background, one of my puppy dogs is in here. She has decided to get in her bed that's in the floor, and she digs around and roots around. So and makes some grunting noises when she does it. Okay, so there's my next fold. And see, I'm trying to keep them not on top of each other. And that's going to be the next one. Try not to pin myself. Alright, so, oops, had it too high, sorry. So you can see, they're not on top of each other, but they're... And if you notice one getting on top of each other, oops, sorry, still held it too high, you can always adjust it a little bit. Alright, so now we're just going to top stitch these down, and I'm going to move it back over here. Alright, ooh, that light is right in my face, so I'm going to move it back. Alright. Move everything out of the way. And I'm going to just line it up with the edge of my fabric here. And you don't have to sew it up here. So I'm going to start it like right there where the bias tape stops. So I'm going to do a little bit of one back stitch. So, and I'm actually going to do it manually, because doing one back stitch with the machine is not always easy for me. Alright, so I'm going to sew forward a little bit and then take my pin out. And just go kind of slow, because it could shift on you when you take the pin out. It tried to shift on me a little bit on the other one. Try not to get my hand caught up in there and hit by that thing coming down. Alright, and then I'm going to do a back stitch. Alright, so that's sewed down, and let's undo that. I'll cut off my extra threads here in a minute. Oop, sorry, I bumped the camera again. And I'm going to sew this one on this side, because like this, instead of turning it around, because I don't want to hit these bumps as I'm sending it through. I'm sure you could. She did in her video, but I'm afraid mine's going to kind of scoot a little bit, and there's no, as long as it's close to the edge, it's okay. I might even, it's still going to end up being about the same amount of room. Okay, I'm going to do more than just a couple of back stitches here, because I want to keep it lined up with, okay. Now I'm going to go forward. Take that out. Oh, thank you, Pat. You said this is awesome. Thank you. And man, Nancy, when you get done, you gonna model it for us? Oh, I don't know about that. I guess I could. I tried on my other one that I did yesterday just to make sure. But I guess I could. That one came over a little further than I like, but I'm gonna shift to this one. Just gonna move that out of the way. Alright, and I'm gonna back stitch. Alright, I think that's good. So, pull that out and do some thread cutting, and we will be done. Let's see. I guess it is a good idea to try it on just to make sure it fits okay. And there is sizes for children too. Let me think. I wrote it down. Oh, my notes are over there. I'll get them in just a second. I still said a lot through this whole thing, even though I tried really hard not to. That's just in my vocabulary, part of my vocabulary, I guess. I don't know. I thought it was kind of annoying when I watched the first video I made and I noticed how many times I said but I know I did it again because it was really difficult not to. Alrighty, I got all my little threads cut and I'm going to take it over where there's more light. Let's see here. Turn this around and let's see. I'm going to turn off the extra light there. Let's see. And this is gonna, oh boy, there's a light right above my head, so I'm going to actually grab my notes and come back over here where the light looks a little bit better. There we go. And turn it. Oh, there's a painting of my puppy dog. Oh, Pat, you're going to send pictures. All right. Okay. So, alrighty. We're done. This was my one I made yesterday with the thinner bias tape. I told everyone before I don't recommend that, especially if you're a beginner. It's kind of frustrating to do it with that. And if you want to do a child size, they said do it 7 inches by 5 inches. So if you're wanting to, because the person that was asking for them, the child that works for the Child Advocacy Centers of Arkansas, I think they want some also for the children. Alrighty, so here we go. I'll have to take my glasses off to try this on. Oh, thanks for sharing. Well, thank you so much, Donna. I really appreciate that. I try to teach stuff. I don't feel like I'm an expert at anything, but the basic stuff I usually do okay at teaching people. So here we go. I'll try this on since Nancy told me to. Let's see. Just to see that it works. Except I'm going to get my hair caught when I'm tying this. I'm not going to tie it real tight. I'm just going to tie it once. I can't see right now since I wear glasses. Let's see. So there you go. There's the mask that we made. And of course you could move your hair out of the way and put it over your ears. It'd probably stay in place better, but I'm not going to do that. Oh, that's hot. I can't believe they wear those all the time. I can't hardly breathe with that on, but that's keeping things from getting you breathing things in. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed this. Let's see. There I go saying again. I'm going to always do that. So next week, I plan on doing a crochet one. Oh, thank you, Donna. I'm going to try crochet next week. That's what some people were really interested in. I'm going to show you. That way, if you didn't see last week's, I have this blanket that I made, and it's a really, really easy type pattern to follow. You can use bulky, you can use any size, yarn that you want when making those. Unless I have other suggestions of things that y'all would rather do instead. But that pattern, I'll show you, even if you haven't crocheted before. It's not a real hard one, so I think that I could probably, at least, it might be a little boring to the people that already know how to crochet, showing you how to do a chain stitch, and then the only other stitch you have to really do on this is a double crochet. So, thank Nancy Rogers. Oh, first time seeing me. Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you are interested in learning how to do bias tape, I'm up for showing y'all how to do that. And if you're interested, if it's something you show an interest in. But if not, we'll do crochet next week. And I'll show you how to do that pattern. It's a pretty simple one. It's really, truly a versatile one. You can make a really big blanket or a small blanket. I'm making lap blankets for the VA hospital. That's what these are, the ones that I have. And I'm using extra yarn that I have at home already that I had no plans for it. I'm not really sure what I bought it for originally, besides I thought it was pretty yarn at the time. I used to crochet and knit a whole lot, and I got into other crafts, so now I just have a bunch of stuff piled up in my craft room that I need to do something with them, and I'm wanting to do stuff for good causes. So I'll show y'all next week on that one. It's pretty simple. The main thing is it doesn't really matter what kind of yarn you use. I will recommend don't buy any really thin yarn because you can use any yarn for this pattern. It doesn't matter. You just need to make sure you have the right size crochet hook to go along with the yarn. Whenever you're buying your yarn, there's always a label. And I didn't really come prepared to talk about this, but surely I can find a thing of yarn sitting in here somewhere that's got a label on it. Generally, I do. Okay, let's see here. Imagine that. I had some sitting right over here. Let's see. This is really thin yarn, so definitely don't. This is sock yarn. Don't use this. Okay, so on your yarn, this is German. Let's make sure. Oh, quit hitting the camera, doggies. Let's see. They have the knitting needle size, but they do not have the crochet hook size. Is that because it's German yarn? I don't understand that. Okay, well, that was not a good example. Let's see. Wow. I just picked something that just really didn't work. Alright, so surely this one. Okay, goody. Here's one that's got a label, and stuff's gonna fall. But it shows a picture of a crochet hook and a picture of knitting needles. And the crochet hook, it says what size. This one's a thin yarn, so it's going to call for a smaller, and it's a letter of the alphabet. Wow, I can't read that. It's too small. I would say this is so thin, it's probably like an F. But it's going to be a letter of the alphabet. The bigger the crochet hook size, knocking yarn in the floor, the thicker the yarn. So a thicker yarn is going to need like an H or a G size. Okay, see you later, Nancy. Thank you. So we'll do that next week. I hope you join me. I will post the supplies needed for the crochet one. The great thing about this pattern, the crochet hook is the same size. Oh, all right. Thank you, Nancy. Let's see. I lost my train of thought. And I keep saying I'll just post on Wednesday what you'll need and tell you, whatever yarn you want to use is fine. And it's a neat pattern because it's 22 stitches, so you just count out 22 stitches for each section of that, and that's how you determine how much bigger. Like one section of this, like this, is 22 stitches, so you just keep making, depending on how long you want it to be, you add 22 more sets of stitches, and then at the very end add 3 to figure out the size that you're making. But we'll go over that next week, and I'll show you how to do it. I'm going to be making another one out of some different yarn, and I'll take pictures, and I'll kind of recommend which one to try to start with if you've never crocheted before. But if you've crocheted before, you could use any. If you like that thicker type, fluffier yarn like that, then you could do that, or the smaller. It just, you'll do more stitches with the smaller yarn in order to make the blanket bigger or whatever. Okay, well, we're done with this, and thank you for, or I guess I'm done, unless y'all have any more questions. So I guess I'm finished now, so I'll see y'all next week. And if you want to make any suggestions of things that other crafts that you'd like to see, I do some knitting, and I may do some painting again. But just tell me what you'd like to see, and we're going to try to do it every Thursday at 7. So just let me know. Thanks. See y'all later. Bye.